Welcome to Gone Phishing, a show diving into the cybersecurity threats that surround our highly connected lives. Every human is different. Every person has unique vulnerabilities that expose them to potentially successful social engineering. On this show, we'll discuss human vulnerability and how it relates to unique individuals. I'm Connor Swalm, CEO of FinSecurity, and welcome to Gone Phishing. Hey everyone, it is Connor, CEO at Fin, and welcome back to Gone Phishing. Today, I am joined by a friend of mine, Kyle Christensen. He is some guy that does things in the channel. Nobody really knows, but he's here. He has spent the last 20 years as a leader, operator, business nerd, and has helped MSPs and tech companies exceed expectations by growing faster than they ever thought they could. Some even call him a chief accountability officer. Kyle, how are you doing?
What's up, my buddy? How are you, man?
I am doing amazing. Never a bad day in my life. And if that changes, must have been a really bad day.
God, can I say how cool that Fin shirt is? I think I've worn it like 100 times, man.
You can. A lot of people have worn it. By the end of whichever conference we bought these two, we had like half of the conference wearing them.
Yeah. My girlfriend stole mine.
I can get you another one. Just send me your home address. I'm not fishing you out of it, I swear. Just send me your home address and I'll get one over to you. But Chief Accountability Officer, do people really call you that?
I fell into it a little bit. One of my clients started calling me because, I help all my clients build strategies. And in those strategies, you build out their org charts, accountability charts, owner charts, wherever they are. And the one differentiator between myself and a lot of other business coaches out there is I stick around and I beat the drum, right? I keep the discipline going. So they put me on their org chart as the chief reminder officer. This is like 4 or 5 years ago. And I never really thought anything of it. And then I told a couple clients that same thing. So they copied. One of them put me VP of Get Done. And then the other put me on the org chart as chief accountability officer. And I kind of stuck with it. You know, it was kind of this crazy idea. Everyone has a business plan. Everyone has some idea of what they want to do with their business. But the only way to turn that into results is with discipline.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people start to get lost in the direction of their organization is discipline's tough, especially for us entrepreneurs.
Discipline is very tough. It's why I weigh a little more than I'd like to. You know, food just tastes too good. But actually, that reminds me of the, I don't know who, Mike Tyson quotes, everyone has a plan till I punch him in the mouth.
Yeah.
That was Tyson.
Or in the A-Team, it was, what is it? Make the plan, work the plan, time to forget the plan.
Yeah. It's sometimes all plans start with the best intentions, but if you're not committed to, those lofty goals or those ambitions that you have, you're going to lose focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling that wraps into what we wanted to talk about today. So for those of you listening, this is slightly different topic than normal, but Kyle is a business coach and helps people achieve results, something I am super, super invested in. And today, it's a concept I have not heard until roughly 15 minutes ago. It's called daring to suck. What does that mean to you, Kyle?
What does that mean to me? It actually, I stole it from Jim Collins.
Okay.
You know who Jim Collins is?
I do.
Yeah. Good to Great, Built to Last, right? A lot of the concepts that Gino Wickman came up with in Entrepreneurial Operating System, that was the source material for a lot of it. And what he did was an interview series where he was interviewing just random people, kind of like what we're doing right now, Connor. And what he found when interviewing Aerosmith, the band, was he was asking them about their writing process and how did they come up with weird songs like Love in an Elevator, right? Like you're like, how does that even become a song, right? What is the process to figuring out that, I'm fornicating in an elevator, like whatever you want to call that. And they had this process that they called a Dare to Suck meeting. And in that Dare to Suck meeting, they literally would just write on just stupid ideas, 1 word, 2 word, whatever, and throw it on the table. Because what they wanted to do was create a process in their writing to where they didn't have to be inhibited or limited in any of the things that they wanted to have come out of their mouth.
Right.
Because to them, right, a lot of times we're afraid to make decisions because of some level of validation or expectation that we put on ourselves or we get put on by our community, right? If we think of the old adage, though, that Winston Churchill used to say, perfection is the enemy of progress. So in really thinking about that, what Aerosmith, and whether this was cognizant or not, probably not, because they were probably high off there the whole time, was that they needed some level to go, okay, put the idea on the table and let's just see if we can come up with some words. And they called that the Dare to Suck meeting. And Jim Collins actually turned that into an entrepreneurial practice, which was there are no bad ideas. There's actually just more lack of try.
There are no bad ideas.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I've been in some meetings where I think I could challenge that. And I think your reaction says you could challenge that.
Yeah, I remember the days of Purple Heinz mustard. So there are absolutely bad ideas. Ideas that should, maybe they make their way into the Dare to Suck meeting, but they should never make their way out for sure.
No, just brainstorm. Let's throw it at the wall. Let's literally throw the ketchup at the wall and
see what sticks. This actually reminds me of a quote. I used to watch Adventure Time for those of you listening. And it's, dude, sucking at something is the first step towards being sort of good at something. I think the whole sentiment that we're trying to get to is when you first start anything, you're not any good at it. That should never stop you from starting. What is something you've messed up in the past that you don't want to mess up again?
Ooh, there's one thing that always has really beat me up over the years. And it goes even back to my days of doing turnarounds for retail. And for me, what always sucked was when I know an employee, and I have plenty of examples like this, but anytime I've had a moment where an employee is failing due to lack of mentorship or expectation setting, and not because of my inability to mentor them, but because I just didn't have my own intent, or I didn't really know at the end of the day what they were truly doing. Great example is when I started to take over the first MSP I was helping run, right? A lot of the people that I came into the environment with didn't really have job descriptions. They didn't have job roles. They didn't have job expectations. They were just, hey, show up, work some tickets. If it gets assigned to you, go ahead and knock them out. And I never really, right? I've always been an accountability guy. I've always been a discipline and make sure you're delivering guy. But it's really different when there's a lack of target. There's a lack of direction. There's, we can say KPIs all we want, but sometimes you could say, hey, I'm going to measure you on how much Purple Heinz ketchup you consume in a week, right? But does it drive any company targets? Does it drive the company forward? And having this bottom-up analysis of if this employee is doing something that I expect them to do can get really lost in translation on, is it even worth our time and effort? I mean, I don't know about you, Connor. I had jobs, especially in the beginning, I had no idea why the hell I was doing. I'm sitting there going, this is a waste of time.
Yeah. Oh, I've had a lot of those.
and the employees feel that way too. Now, where it really gets gross is when you are a situation where you almost have to fire the employee or let them go because they're so lost now down the road that there is no path to redemption.
Yeah.
And and whenever I have my clients bring me on board, I have to set the expectation with a lot of times that part of the restructure that I'm going to bring them, there's going to be 15 to 20% attrition.
Is that normal or is that high? I don't know.
I don't know if it's normal or high, but it's happened every single time I've done it. And I've done it a lot now. And usually the excuse we give ourselves, right, is, oh, well, it's easier to hire somebody new than to correct the bad habit, which it is. That is the unfortunate nature of this problem. But it always feels horrible because when you're doing it that it's kind of my fault that they're getting fired or that they're being let go or I'm, managing them out.
Something that I just started saying is if I have one-on-ones with a lot of my team members and I said, basically, if you don't help me set expectations, I've already set them for you. So if you want your input and your abilities and where you think this role should be going at all factored into what I expect is like, I need you to impress that upon me or it's already going to be impressed upon you. And so far, haven't been doing that very long, but so far that's come with wonderful outcomes because the worst feeling is when that employee feels lost and then you feel responsible for that. And in reality, if you're a leader, a lot of your employees failing should fall, rightfully so, back upon yourself.
Mhm.
And all of that could have been prevented with like kind of what you had mentioned with proper training.
Well, because the opposite can also happen too, right? Where you start to manage in fear of holding them accountable.
Where you
So it
start to
kind of
do
goes
some of
both
that work
ways.
for them.
Yeah, right. You become their safety net. You become your own worst enemy in that instance. So to me, right, to answer the question real high level, which is, I don't want to ever manage again without clear direction. I don't want to manage any people unless I know what the top level objective is, so I can work everything backwards. So I don't have to sit there and go, okay, what's my hypothetical judgment of if this employee is good or not?
Clear direction and clear expectations.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty reasonable, right?
I feel like, so if anyone's ever applying to a job and you're listening to this podcast right now, you should absolutely ask your potential employer what's expected in this role. What are you mentioned the word KPI? What are the key performance indicators that my productivity will be judged based on? And if they don't have a solid answer for that, it's probably a red flag of they haven't put enough effort into it, or you're just going to run into some rocky roads at some point.
And there's a good chance they're going to manage you with a moving target because they're going to
Yeah,
have to move them. They're going to have to change them. They're going to hire some business coach at one point. That's going to tell them, hey, your KPIs suck. Let's go change everyone's job description.
yeah, yeah. Which
Uh,
nobody benefits when that happens.
no. And it feels awkward. And then your own self esteem and your own drive and passion starts to wane. How about you? What have you messed up, man?
Oh, if I sat here and told you how many things I've messed up, we'd never get off the chairs. Um, I'll go through it real quick. It's actually a really funny story. First house I ever flipped, I think I was 19, maybe 20 at the time. And I created a contract, an agreement, a draw schedule with my set of contractors. I was basically acting as the general contractor. And here is where this applies to everyone's life. I made an agreement. Me and the other party completely agreed on the agreement, not only the compensation, but the timeline, the work that was listed in this agreement. And we were off to the races. And we get about 4 months into this project together. And contractor comes to me and says, "Hey, I need a bit of the money stipulated in this agreement early, even though I haven't done some of the work." And that's called a draw schedule. So you complete work, you get some money. Complete more work, you get some more money. And that's how you make sure your contractor's not going to run off with the entire bit of cash and that everything's moving according to plan. Um, so me being me, also 19, have never ever done this before. I was like, "Oh yeah, no problem. Here you go." I think it was like a $3,500 check. And I go home talking to my dad, and I tell my dad basically what had just happened, and he just starts laughing. And I was like, "What? What are you laughing at?" And he's like, "Oh, you're never seeing that money again." I was like, this was 19-year-old me. I go, "You don't know what you're talking about."
Oh,
And my dad's
totally.
like, "Okay, sure." And it's as if that story was getting read to a child at bedtime stories at night. Like the next day, my contractor stopped answering my texts, my emails, my phone calls, and I never heard from him again. He literally took the money and ran. And I had to go back to that property on Christmas Eve to do the work that I had just paid this guy to do, which was to install trim, hang doors, and put the door handles and the door jambs and stuff into place and cut it out of the wood and whatnot. I had to go to a house on on Christmas Eve and do that. Never did that again. Not once. And I got into some tricky scenarios after the fact with some other contractors who were clearly robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I was like, nope. I learned the first time I did this, I was lucky enough to screw it up so badly. I lost $3,500 that I'm not doing this. So either I'm finding a new contractor or you're going to do this as we agreed to initially. And every single time they went away and did what they were asked to do. So set expectations, everyone listening. Just do that and you'll be on a really good spot.
It's funny. We're kind of on the similar path, right? We both have something where we weren't clear in what we were expecting.
Yeah.
And we we failed, right? Like at the end of the day, it hurt, right? Like you fire the wrong employee, you hold the wrong thing accountable, your own results don't trickle up. You're not putting money in your pocket.
Yep, absolutely.
Um,
Any last second words of advice?
Last
An idiom
second
of
words
sorts.
of advice, idioms. Honestly, at the end of the day, when it comes to this, perfection is the enemy of progress. That Churchill quote, more than anything, I think is the biggest thing that, especially as IT providers, technology professionals, we can keep in mind, because we always try to go after the perfect solution because it always has to be perfectly right. But we lose progress, and that progress ends up being on our shoulders as the owners. Don't fall into that sinkhole.
Don't fall into that sinkhole. Perfection is the enemy of progress. You heard it here, maybe first, probably not, with Kyle
I mean, Winston
Christensen.
Churchill said it, so.
He's just a no-name historical figure. Nobody's gonna know who that guy is.
No.
Anyways, everybody, thank you for listening. Once again, I am Connor, CEO at Fin, joined by Kyle Christensen, and you've been listening to Gone Phishing. Thanks so much for tuning in to Gone Phishing. If you want to find out more about high-quality security awareness training campaigns, how to launch them in ways that actually engage employees to change their habits, then check us out, Fin Security, at finsec.io. That's PHINSEC.io, or click all of the wonderful links in our show notes. Thanks for fishing with me today, and we'll see you next time.